Hi there, Redneck Preppy here, with a video I wasn't actually intending on making today. Well, I was going to make it on the topic of chamber adapters, but it was supposed to be a test to see how much, if any, difference you see between the proper ammunition a rifle was designed to fire and one of those chamber adapters which allows you to fire pistol caliber rounds. The knock on these adapters has long been that you lose a lot of accuracy because of the difference between the bore size of your rifle barrel versus the smaller diameter of a pistol caliber bullet. Well, instead of that video, my adventure at the gun range recently changed it from an accuracy test to see whether you should actually even bother buying one of these chamber adapters, at least when it comes to the 5.77-450 chambered Martini Henry rifle. Now, my methodology for that test was going to be fairly simple. I was going to shoot several groups out of the rifle with 5.77-450 ammunition that I hand-loaded, and then follow that up with several groups of 45 ACP ammunition, which is what my recently acquired chamber adapter allowed in my Martini Henry Mk IV. All right, let's get out to the range and see what happened. So as you can see, I started shooting the hand-loaded 5.77-450 rounds that I've been producing with great success. While I haven't fine-tuned my load yet, I get reasonable accuracy, all things considered, from a 134-year-old rifle that saw a few decades of military service, probably before a century of civilian use. Now, if I do my part, I can generally achieve about 4 MOA from this rifle. Again, all things considered, I'm not going to complain. Now, next up was the chamber adapter. Now, I didn't have any issues chambering the adapter and inserting a round into it. As you would expect, it shot pretty quietly and gently compared to the 5.77-450 round. However, unknown to me until the 8th and final round that I fired with it, the adapter cracked at the neck during those shots, and it grew until it finally reached the base of the adapter. Now, my clue that this happened was the above ordinary smoke that you see. In fact, there's a lot of smoke coming out of the receiver every time I eject the adapter, so that crack must have started fairly early. And of course, I'm pointing the wrong side of the adapter to the camera, so you can't see the crack, but here's a close-up picture of it. Now, why this happened is a bit of a mystery. It could be down to the adapter not being machined to spec for rifles chambered for 5.77-450, and I don't mean grossly out of spec, a few thousandths of an inch difference in where the shoulder is, the amount of clearance the neck has, or headspace, or any other number of measurements. That would have led to an expansion of the adapter under the pressure of 21,000 pounds per square inch that 45 ACP is supposed to generate, and causing a failure. Needless to say, I will not be using this adapter any longer. Now that we've learned about the excitement that I had at the range, I guess it's time for me to pass judgment on the concept of chamber adapters. Now, I'm going to be upfront, perhaps colored by my experience. I'm giving them a thumbs down. There are some good reasons, at least in my opinion, I think why you should avoid these adapters. Number one, the most obvious, is that they're going to be inherently less accurate because you're using a bullet with a different diameter, far less, than your rifle's barrel. That means the bullet isn't going to engage very well with the lands and grooves and not stabilize as well in flight. Now, for those adapters made for shotguns, I think it's almost certain that you just better be off throwing the bullets at your target at anything other than close range, because they're just not going to be very good at all. Two, it's not a question of when or if, but when one of these adapters is going to get stuck into your chamber. And when that happens, it's not going to be very easy to remove it. Three, chamber adapters are susceptible to headspace issues or other differences in critical measurements. So you could have a very tight fit, which would make extraction difficult, or you might not even be able to properly chamber that adapter at all. Number four, if your chamber is oversized, which could very well be the case with an old rifle that's had, God knows how many rounds through it, you could have excessive expansion in the adapter, which could lead to its failure, which is what I think happened in my case. Brass flows a little like water when it's under the enormous pressure of a round going off, so when it expands, it's not a big deal. It's a little more forgiving. Steel is harder, but it's more brittle, and as my adapter shows, it'll fail sooner rather than later if there's an opportunity for expansion. Now, I can only speak to what happened in the adapter of my rifle. There are a wide variety of these adapters for rifles that shoot .303 British, .308 Winchester, .30-06 Springfield, 8mm Mauser, among others, and they generally convert down to .32 ACP. You can even buy them to convert 12 gauge and 20 gauge shotguns to shoot pistol calibers like 40 Smith & Wesson, 357 Magnum, and 45 Colt, among others. That said, I've seen so many negative experiences involving these adapters across different kinds of rifles that I honestly believe that you should give them a pass. Yeah, there are plenty of people that use them without issues, including in Martini Henry rifles, but there are also plenty of people who report nothing but problems with them. It's true that it could have been my adapter or my rifle that had the issue, but at this point, without going into the world of chamber casting so that I can do an in-depth analysis and comparison between my chamber and the adapter, I'm not sure. Why would you want to use one of these? Well, if you own a military surplus rifle, particularly old rifles where ammunition is supremely scarce, you have to hand load it or it's really expensive, you may have been put off shooting that rifle or just doing so on rare occasion when you can obtain this ammunition. With something like Martini Henry rifles, that's certainly understandable. 5.77-450 isn't being manufactured commercially outside of a couple, boutique operations. If you can't buy the ammunition, you aren't interested in hand loading it, your only real alternative might be one of these adapters. I would seriously, though, consider that decision. Yes, you are saving money on ammunition with an alternative caliber, or you're simply able to shoot the rifle that you own. You should, however, weigh that against the possible risk to both you and your rifle, as, my example illustrates. This also might not mean anything to you, but you are losing some of the experience of firing something like a Lee Enfield by plowing .32 ACP through it. If you want to shoot pistol calibers out of a rifle, buy a pistol caliber carbine. Either way, I don't have much interest in doing more investigation into the topic of chamber adapters. To reiterate, I vote against them. Hard no. At any rate, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you found it vaguely informative and somewhat entertaining. I hope you have a great day, and may all of your shots, especially if you're using one of these, ring true. Take care.